Nintendo's Mole Mania on Game Boy, released in 1996, or 97 if you prefer. Take note, this is a redux of something I did 2 years ago. By now, it should go without noting that this was regarded by many as one of Shigeru Miyamoto's lesser-known titles. Yes, the same Miyamoto responsible for every widely known franchise that dare not speak their name or description. As usual, before I kick off this Redux analysis, I'd like to pass along my customary acknowledgements to the Boston Open Screen team, that is Healy, Van Voorhees, and Atwood, Bitbar Salem, Geekbeat Radio, Boston 8-Bit, the Nerdfit Network, MagFest, Orlando Boom, The Proto Men, Mariachi Entertainment System, David Wise 5, DJ Cutman, DIY The Show, Mike Lindquist from Wayland, Massachusetts, Mike Maverick Lafitte from Waynesboro, Mississippi, Deidre Fisher from Wilford, South Carolina, and finally Gary Summers from the Northeast Comic Con or South Coast Comic Con and Collectibles Extravaganza. With these out of our system, on to the main story. A suave, cunning mole by the name of Muddy, aka Moguranya, hence this game's original alternate Japanese title, is out to rescue his kidnapped wife, presumably Maggie, and 7-unit offspring from the clutches of a merciless and impatient dickwad asshat human farmer Jinbei. How, one might ask? Get this, by traversing and digging his way through the latter's own domain, namely Jinbei Land, and wiping out every opposing creature and or rogue human in his path. Some arduous path he's got lined up for himself, don't you think? Concerning the gameplay, what could one possibly expect but another top-view action puzzle caper akin to the likes of Cuckoo Land and Devil World, two other Nintendo titles, with the latter not seeing an American release, due to obvious religious reasons no less. HAL Laboratories' Adventures of Lolo, DreamWorks and NCS's Trampoline Terror, aka its cancelled Japanese counterpart Explode Star, Hudson Soft and Game Freak's Mendel Palace, aka Quincy, Natsume's Amazing Penguin, SNK Playmore's Dexterity, and the like. In each area, not only are you burrowing your way underground to reach inaccessible areas, you're also pushing and pulling environmental objects to traverse your way through every stretch of land while outwitting every common territorial adversary roaming said stretches, running the gamut from alligators, penguins, T-Rex, pufferfish, canaries, beings made of mud, porcupines, aka what this game refers to as weevils. The list goes on and fucking on. Hell, in addition, you're even hinted on what to do via helpful signs posted within each area by Grandpa Mole. But whatever you do, don't rely on them too fucking often. Anyways, control-wise, the traditional D-pad migrates old Muddy horizontally and vertically, that is north and south, like Zelda and Pokemon obviously, both above and underground, while B&A allow him to grab a hold of or pull any object, as well as dig underground or resurface above, individually. And to top it off, you can even study the enemy patterns underground, hence the old peeping Tom technique via the B button. While select does dick all, except for restarting any area from square one in case you fucked up, or exiting an already embarked area, start accesses a menu informing you of how many items you've acquired, on which I'll elaborate further eventually, the cabbages you've salvaged, the time spent in any single stage, and your choices of leaving this menu, also performed using start, escaping or going back if you will, to your previously cleared area, or going back to the main stage select area. Regarding the items, Muddy can acquire a map to further display the terrain he's in, not to mention those of all the top secret bonus areas and end boss confrontations, a radar locator for pinpointing your current location, a life recovery potion, and a surrender card, which, upon usage, will allow you to easily skip through your current land area while nullifying every obstacle and enemy within, to name a few. In tandem with cabbages, you can salvage underground for instant life recovery. Of course, you only have to bury 5 of them. Shifting right back into the main gameplay aspect, as mentioned before, hauling ass both above ground and underground, while not only putting the old kibosh on those territorial cumbucket animal foes, and solving even the most intricate and mind-raping environmental puzzles. I'm looking at you again, Light Crusader, but also knocking out the concrete slab with the bowling ball to access new areas isn't just cataclysmically hard, oh fuck no. It's more like a time-consuming chore that'll wear your ass out faster than a 250,000-mile cross-country marathon without any vehicles, running on 2 hands blindfolded and upside down with both a police nightstick and an Excalibur sword shoved halfway up one's ass. And remember those end boss confrontations I was gloating about not too goddamn long ago? Upon reaching the extreme ass end of every maze stage, you'll find yourself scoring off against the following. Kangaroon, a demented and manic kangaroo that lobs its gloves for shits and gigs. Christ, even Kangu from Clay Fighter 2 Judgment Clay would be so damn proud. Here's what you do. When he leaps, align the pins with his shadow to dispatch his marsupial ass. Sundus, a flamboyant living sun, hell-bent on unleashing its blinding flash to all who cross his path. Christ, SMB3 much? Prior to said flash attack, dig underground to take cover from the light, and launch the bowling ball horizontally, as the rednecks would say, near the sun bitch, or in this case, near the sun bitch. Funton, a living mutant wade whose only means of havoc wreaking are making ultra-high leaps of faith, thus landing on its steel-firm noggin, and spinning out of control upon being exposed to any damage. For him, just make a hole under where he's about to land, and he should be no goddamn trouble whatsoever. A crazed and skull-blitzed beyond belief mad wrencher, just place the detouring pipes in his direction to launch back the wrenches he throws at you. A family of 4 weevil children led by their one and only parent, plus various other grotesque, out-of-place hostile parties running said field from a weightlifting mud wrestler / mud ballerina couple. A giant snowman which splits into smaller versions of itself upon getting nailed. Bad Mr. Frosty, eat your fucking heart out. And finally, that pissed-ant bastard farmer Jinbei himself. Now, unless you're strategy savvy, memorizing and taking heed of every environmental pattern within each area you occupy, especially when it comes to these intense showdowns no less, expect those insolent, obnoxious, mindless, dickless, mule fellatiating, ass-licking, semen slurping, triceratops teabagging, anus-gaping, hemorrhage-inducing, boner-devouring, genital and rectal wart-plugging pieces of pterodactyl shit to make you their eternal, whorish sumka in a way you've never even read about or heard of, thus making you squeal non-stop like the old Scarlet Pimpernel. Upon eliminating your target offender, your current maze is cleared, thus a giant cabbage falls from the heavens, revealing each missing mole child, with the exception of the final area of course. Following a compassionate yet comical post-stage cutscene centering on Muddy's reunion with his offspring, which you'll see every time for the record, and depending on not only completion time, but also how much of the area you've embarked, how many secrets you've found, how many cabbages you've buried and salvaged, and whether or not you've succeeded in the soon-to-be elaborated top-secret bonus scenes, your current score will be tallied, up to a possible 100, in which case, make every goddamn effort count, and rinse, lather, fucking repeat. While the controls are far from a star-craving bitch to get the hang of, the central methodical gameplay element, as perplexing and out of focus as it can become at times, in terms of your awareness of where every environmental aid is used, and one's self-reliance on said aids, in tandem with the previously addressed end-boss confrontations, amongst other stumbling blocks you'll face within, hence the limelight of our next acknowledged subject I might add, is nothing short of forthright and by the numbers, and let me tell you, that's no horseshit either. In regards to Mole Mania's challenge, expect a piss ton of them regardless of your intended progress. For starters, those game-changing environmental aids, you know, the bowling balls, weights, and detouring pipes, the latter two of which are unable to be pulled for the record, barrels, direction-changing panels, you name it. While some of them can be a great help in terms of wiping your rivals out, not to mention stage-appropriate puzzle-solving elements, and other necessary trial-and-error strategies, others may turn out to be a massive progress hindrance, depending on your own decisions alone of course, in which case, retreat to your previous field and return in order to make your current one reset itself. Take the barrels for instance. While they're used as a weapon, just like the bowling ball, which by the way respawns in its initial place upon falling into any hole, they can also be used to plug up holes for safer travels with the bowling ball. But whatever you do, avoid throwing them into the wrong goddamn holes. In addition, aside from the life recovery potion, you're free to visit Grandpa Mole in time of need, in terms of having your health replenished, as well as a helpful hint he throws your way. But take note, visiting him more than once, hence what I like to call NPC pestering or patronizing, will result in the most dire punishments in history. Should you also happen to have your ass obliterated at any point, that is if you've lost all 4 heart portions, like in Darkwing Duck by Capcom, the third of which triggers the usual "you're fucked" alarm, you're taken directly to the game over screen, at which point you're able to either A, pick up right where you miscalculated your approaches, or B, just earn yourself a one-way ticket back to the title. And now, here's the big front cover feature about which I've been dying to report. The top secret bonus rounds. Should you happen to come across any circled star within the stage area via an alternate underground path, whether by pure luck or accident, if mostly the former, you're instantly warped to them in the blink of an eye. During these rounds, you have to bury all the cabbages underground while keeping the uptight as fuck arch nemesis Jinbei at bay within the time limit. No pun intended, I assure everyone. Those same cabbages can also be used to distract the mindless son of a bitch in order for you to buy yourself some much needed time, of which I highly suggest taking the most mandatory advantage. If you manage to successfully bury all the cabbages, you're given 20 extra points to add to your final stage score. However, should the Big J happen to clobber your little mammal ass, a chunk of your duration gets severely deducted. If it runs out completely, it's your loss, tough shit, in which case you'll have to warp back the fuck in to try again, and expect to fuck yourself over on many occasions than one. Believe me, I had to go through these goddamn mini stages at least 5 times, even on my own motherfucking Game Boy no less. And before I forget, this same mini round is also used in the 2-player versus mode. That is, if you secured another Game Boy, another copy of this game, and a link cable, the latter of which can be a pain in the ass to come by nowadays. Aside from these, take every helpful, advice-laden hint and word to the wise into account, unless you're dying for an all-inclusive nightmare without any end whatsoever. For a Game Boy game released near the ass end of its soon-to-be non-goddamn existent lifespan, around the time when N64 and Pokemon were all the rage no less. The graphics are far from a repulsive area of abominations, but on the surface, nothing special to write home about either. In addition to all the semi-recognizable main and supporting characters, their opposing rivals, animation-wise, and foreground textures aren't something to be mocked at, as they're not only true to life, as many might fathom, but are so much better on the Super Game Boy, with which this game was also compatible at the time for the record. Sure, the latter graphical portions tend to repeat themselves in between each area, if not frequently, but they're still so fucking unique on their own steam that anyone would hardly mind in the least. Music and sound-wise, conducted masterfully by Taro Bando, later of F-Zero X fame, alongside Hajime Wakai, and the resident sound engineer for almost every major Nintendo hit since Super Mario Kart, circa 92, both for the company's Kyoto-based EAD division and the recently established EPD division, the former of which Bando joined back in '87. The themes possess something of an addictive, inescapable flair to them that dare not speak its name, and admittedly enough, fluctuate a ton throughout each interim. The correlating sound effects are somewhat lively, if at times unsettling, most notably the enemy deaths, the concrete slab being knocked down, and Muddy intensely advancing his strength as he's about to push or pull any object, but yet again, aren't a goddamn thing at which to be scorned either. My top 6 songs from this game alone are as follows: the opening menu, the forest theme for stages 1, 3, and 7, with the latter heard in one section, the beach theme for stages 2 and 6, the boss theme, the pre-level 8 theme, also heard when you're short of time during the cabbage salvaging bonus rounds, or if you're pissing off Grandpa Mole too much, and finally the snowy forest theme for areas 5 and 7. Regarding the replay value, thanks as a whole to the methodical and fundamental, not to mention nerve-wracking top-view puzzle mechanics that this heinously eclipsed and unintentionally overlooked handheld title has to offer, in tandem with the emo heartstring tugging and funny bone tickling cinematics, it should become abundantly clear as Grey Goose vodka that, as the front of the box states, you'll dig Mole Mania indeed. So please, take my advice, or don't. As tempting as Pokemon, Animal Crossing, Pikmin, and Katamari Damacy are, sweep those motherfuckers under the rug and switch to this hijinks-laden puzzle caper. Yet again, no pun intended. Trust me, it'll make Tetris Attack look like fucking solitaire in a way you've never imagined. Therefore, in summation, what's my cast iron final verdict? In full realization of how this classic was left under the goddamn radar, even during its release one might add, I see no point in reiterating all the pros and cons Mole Mania harbors, the former of which excessively outweigh the latter for the record, or why many should at least give it a fighting chance, if hell way more. So what are you waiting for, the launch of Splatoon 3? Do yourself an enormous favor and dig to your heart's content for Mole Mania. I assure you, there's no way on the many corners of our beloved planet that you'll be disenchanted or unmotivated by its boundless charm and wits. Bubble Ghost for the Game Boy by Fujisankei Communications International, or FCI for short, alongside its partner Pony Canyon, in association with Opera House, circa 1990, based on an earlier French concept by the ill-fated ERE Informatique, which, by the time this port was released, was later surrendered to the also short-lived Infogrames. Mike Lindquist, this is for you. What do you know? The start of yet another arduous year/decade. Who the hell wouldn't expect anything less, right? Anyways, before we get into this, not only am I dedicating this to Mike Lindquist, but also to Michelle Wan from Newton, Deirdre Fisher from Wilford, South Carolina, Brookline Interactive Group and Somerville Media Center, Boston Open Screen, looking at you Atwood, Healy, and Van Voorhees, Samantha Ross from Your Ultimate Wingman, online dating coaches Sammy Moa and Moa Bossi, Boston 8-Bit, Geekbeat Radio, The Proto Men, The Mariachi Entertainment System, DJ Cutman, The Mount Vernon Kid, Java Slovakia, Blasphemous HD, Aaron Hickman aka Daya, and 8-Bit Eric, both from San Antonio, Texas, James Rolfe and Mike Matei from Cinemassacre, as well as the Rental Reviews cast and crew. Famed game composers Harumi and Yasuaki Fujita, no relation whatsoever despite them bearing the same last name. And finally, voice acting husband and wife duo, John Patrick Lowry and Alan McLean. And also, how the hell could I ever forget about Anthony's from Denver, Colorado? With all that out of the way, for those unaware of Bubble Ghost's origins, it's the creation of Christophe Andriani that debuted in France on the Atari ST back in '87, developed by a short-lived company, ERE Informatique, before it was absorbed by the also short-lived Infogrames 2 years later, as I just indicated. It revolves around the adventures, or misadventures, however you want to look at it, of a nameless roaming specter, its one and only bubble, and its arduous journey through the halls of an abandoned mansion filled with traps and tricks galore, except what we're looking at is a more modernized, if dated as hell handheld version, again reprogrammed by Opera House, of the Genesis version for Captain America and the Avengers, and Two Crew Dudes for Data East, Devilish for Sage's Creation care of Hot B, Veritex for Asmic and the like, for FCI's Pony Canyon label. As far as gameplay, you assume control of the former two, specifically guiding both the earlier recounted Nameless Ghost and its bubble, hence where the title lies, via A in tandem with the D-pad, while avoiding and or controlling the latter, that is the assortment of traps and tricks within, in terms of blowing out candles, deactivating machines and fans in advance, calming down live animals, evading various deadly hazards including beam barriers and retracting blades, you name it. Whatever you do, never ever let the bubble hit any hard surface or you'll deliberately piss the ghost off, thereby resulting in, what a shock, an instant life loss. Also, a ton of quirks to note. When the ghost is near the bubble, it'll circle its way around for a dramatic gravitational effect, as well as a better blowing aim for the ghost to guide the bubble wherever necessary to avoid any accidental collisions. And remember some of the other tasks I outlined not too long ago? Some of the select few are mandatory for progression, and you'll be fucked hard in the ass if they're not accomplished. As for the rooms containing fans with no switches, you're best off finding a way to have the bubble squeeze its way past them, as long as you're precise enough in luring it. Ditto for the other unexpected threats ahead. In other words, expect one round after another of serious, round-the-clock trial and error experiments on your part alone, as you're given a hair-splitting yet surprisingly lenient time limit for each room. But total focus, timing, and sheer meticulosity are imperative if you intend to stand any chance whatsoever in all 35 projected rooms of this semi-futuristic, gargantuan as balls mansion. At least the control schematics, while derelict and cumbersome both at first and at specific points best not mentioned until later, are rather flexible to accustom oneself to, and the gameplay framework's on about the same goddamn plateau, but mark my words, be prepared for the absolute fucking worst. In regards to Bubble Ghost Challenge, as typical of any puzzle platformer, the difficulty varies depending on your progress. Case in point, the first 10 rooms are a deceptive ass walk in the park, especially 3 through 5 where, as I just hinted earlier, the candles and or fans have to be blown out or shut down, respectively, in advance. Otherwise, expect a living universe of shit down the line. But upon reaching the 11th room and onward, the remainder of your indoor voyage gets even more intense than one could possibly fathom. The only select halls that gave me a huge, irreversible case of the red ass, just like the aforementioned Nameless Ghost every time you fuck up, were 11, 20, 23, 26, 27, and 34, mostly due to those earlier hinted imperative virtues, and especially those goddamn intensifying as shit spike hazards, constantly running fans, and the patterns of the barrier beams that illuminate every now and again, around which I also suggest possessing a clear, vigilant eye when attempting to maneuver the bubble while keeping the infinitesimal motherfucker out of harm's way. Did I forget to mention that there are also warp spaces to skip an entire floor, amongst a handful of the other quirks I also implied earlier, considering they ultimately defeat the purpose of a genuinely challenging run? But I digress. On top of starting out with 5 lives, more of which can be allocated by scoring 40,000 points, you're only allowed to continue twice, thereby granting a more immense opportunity to further improve beyond one's hindrances, especially given those previously indicated key approaches I might add. As far as graphics go, despite not having any distinctive background designs, except maybe for the exterior sets at the end, cause what the hell, it was during the Game Boy's infancy and whatnot. The overall art style is nothing short of eye-catching and provocative, though nowhere near the likes of, say, Emma Stone, Lizzie Kaplan, Amber Heard, Katherine Heigl, Leslie Mann, the aforementioned Samantha Ross, Fairuza Balk, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Allison Hannigan, Linda Cardellini, and even what I like to call the weird local productions harem, made up of Carly Lieberman, Taylor Copeland, Erica Morricone, Trisha Potato, Alex Derderian, and others. The interior designs of the mansion and constant animations of the participating, if to some extent out of place, structures, machines, live animals, and the like have their moments. But the one feature that really stands out amongst all the rest is the ever so adorable roaming nameless ghost and its key actions in terms of the way it migrates and blows its silent liquefied partner around, and even turning blue, or to be precise, according to the Super Game Boy's hue that I'm using, purple, after you force him to blow too long, as well as the varying expressions it displays depending on your efforts. Either stoked that you cleared a level, or once again, severely pissed off that you lured its bubble into a wrong turn. Other than those features, why the hell even rave on any further? In terms of music and sound, composed by the illustrious Hitoshi Sakimoto, otherwise going under the alias YMOH.S, of the aforementioned Two Crew Dudes, Devilish, the Game Gear and Genesis versions, the latter aka Bad Omen in Japan. Not to mention Veritex, Sword Maniac, aka Excalibur 2097 here in the US and Europe, where Psychosonic's music is introduced, Super Back to the Future 2, based on Alan Silvestri's original film score, the Tactics Ogre and Ogre Battle franchises, Dragon Warrior aka Dragon Quest VI, Bloody Roar, Final Fantasy Tactics, Original and Advance, Final Fantasy XII, Vagrant Story, Gradius 5, and Valkyria Chronicles fame. It should come as no surprise whatsoever that the choice of songs included is sparse yet enlightening and addictive as Taiwanese boba tea, despite not having tried much of it often, but I digress. Granted, although there's only 3 of them, specifically the opening titles, main mansion, and the ending theme, and while they tend to grate on one's nerves after a predetermined period of time during which they loop continuously, not to mention the fact that they don't grow on you as much as, say, Fall of the Foot Clan or Dr. Mario, I've got no reservations expressing yet another in the never-ending slew of end-all be-all antitheses. In other words, the track should be flat-out guaranteed to rock your socks off. In addition, as much as I'm trying to avoid any sophomoric-ass understatements, I wish I could say the same about the sound effects, of which there's barely any by the way, specifically when the bubble warps to the next or previous areas, when it accidentally bursts near any hard surface, and the score being tallied up at the end of each room. In regards to the replayability, I for one don't need to tell everyone that there's dick all else or more to comment on at this juncture, but that doesn't mean I'm ultimately sealing my fate by mindlessly convincing everyone to shift back to the obvious. Shit no! Arbitrary overreaction aside, as long as you're aware enough of what to expect and how to conquer the hell out of every indoor impediment without any chaotic ass mental crisis whatsoever, and if you've enjoyed every other puzzle romp the Big Ray Brick had to offer at the time, even now no less, you'd be as high as a goddamn kite, in fact higher than Dale and Saul from Pineapple Express, to pass up Bubble Ghost. Am I wrong? Am I? Cause God help you if you think otherwise. Henceforth, as always, what's my final verdict? It should be easy to see why the Christ this, yet another underrated puzzle romp, has been unfairly overshadowed and eclipsed to the brink of ignorance by those of the same genre-based breed during the Game Boy's early heyday, notwithstanding all the wondrous aspects and features it had to offer, about which won't be recapped. But even having made one valid point after another, Bubble Ghost is also a solid choice that most of us should experience once, hell, if often, before moving on to anything else, right next to Heiankyo Alien and Daedalian Opus I might add. Therefore, considering its loose asking price of roughly $15, or miraculously enough less, and complete ranged asking price of $70 to $100, I'd do my absolute damnedest to track a copy down whenever and or however possible. And believe me, even every social game out there, looking at you Angry Birds, Farmville, and God forbid Bubble Witch Saga, won't even measure up for shit to the mysterious and whimsical exploits of Bubble Ghost. Fuck no! Anyways, proclamation set in stone. Until then, this is the one and only Hardcore Retro God triumphantly signing off.